With that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Mayor Dennis Phillips, and he's going to make remarks about his campaign.
Well, let me first of all say I appreciate the fact that I'm running unopposed. Any political person will always appreciate that fact. But it's very important that you vote for me and alderman candidates that feel, as I do, to move this city forward. A vote for me indicates that you approve of what's been done for the last 2 years, 3 years in this city. And it's very, very important to me that we continue the positive that has been over the past 3 or 4 years. And KNETIC is one of the things, one of the groups that I feel very strongly about. We need more young people coming back to Kingsport. And in order to do that, you've got to have things to do, and you've got to be able to have a job. And, you know, whether we like it or not, we have to have a paycheck to live anywhere. And I want to commend y'all for what you've done in this KNETIC group. You're growing. You represent the city well. And when you go to the polls and when other goes to the polls, I want you to vote for people that have been positive in Kingsport. I want you to vote for people that have supported the progress, which includes the Thursday and Friday night concerts, which includes the vision that we have for the future. And your vote is very, very important. And again, I appreciate the fact that the public has enough confidence in me. It's either they have enough confidence in me that I'm unopposed, or they just wasn't anybody dumb enough to run for mayor. I'm not sure which. I've heard both sides of that story, but I like to think that you appreciate what we're doing, and you have an opportunity to continue by electing good, positive people to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mayor Phillips. I'd also like to thank all of the candidates for aldermen who are here tonight. I know it takes a lot of effort and energy, and I don't think any of them do it for the paycheck. There's 2 things that would make me run for alderman. One is the house that I live in, I grew up in, is my grandparents' house and my dad's house, and every year it's a little closer to the city. So as soon as that happens, I can run. Okay. Or the second thing is if they start paying more and it's an attractive job proposition, I think that I might be interested then.
You better hope for annexation.
But Valerie said that my best hope was for annexation, not the second one. So with that, I just thank you all. Public service is a noble pursuit, and it's something I hope that our constituency here tonight becomes more interested in. I'd like to introduce our timers, Paul and Amber Vachon. The green means you're good. The red means you need to be quiet. And the yellow means you're getting close to being red. And what we want to do, we want to keep this kind of light and lively. And we want to thank everybody here at the bus pit for coming out. This is a new venue for Kingsport. I'm really glad everybody's here. And what we want to do is take just a moment and have you just introduce yourselves. And we'd like to have you give what we young professionals like to call your elevator speech. So just a 30-second boiled-down version of who and what you are. So if you guys are ready, just...
you want to pass this down?
Yeah, I'm sorry, you guys, there's one microphone. We're going to try to do multiple ones, but we just figured if you could pass it down, that would be best.
Okay, my name is Wade McClellan. I own Livewire Communications Company here in Kingsport. I've been in business for 18 years. I have a wife and a daughter who live here in Kingsport, 2 grandchildren, and I'm really lucky to be here. I enjoy this area, and I enjoy the people.
Thanks, Wade.
Hello, my name's Tom Parham, and I'm truly honored to be a candidate for Kingsport Alderman. For the past 25 years, my focus has been service to the community and government service. I'm really perhaps best known for work I've done with the Kingsport Greenbelt, with the riverfront redevelopment, and with the Beverage Board. I wish to be elected to continue using my experience and my service for our city. I very strongly support affordable growth, and I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
It's very hard for a woman to speak 30 seconds. My name is Valerie Yo. I've been on the board for 6 years, and I'm not through yet. And I'd like to have 4 more years to finish doing what I feel is very important that we do. I've been a businesswoman here for over 30 years, owned my own business, and I've spent a lot of time talking to people about why they want to live in Kingsport and what they think we need to do to improve it. So that gives me a unique perspective on the board. Thank you very much.
I'm Mike McIntyre. I've been in Kingsport 43 years, retired from Eastman after 34 years, have been the business administrator at First Broad Street for the last 8 years. Have served in a number of capacities in this community, and it's time for me to give back to this community that I love and that I want to see continue to grow and to improve. And appreciate you all having us here tonight.
I'm Ben Malacote. I've been on the board for the last 4 years, and for the last 2 have served as the vice mayor. I am running for this office again for a very simple reason. Because I think Kingsport is and ought to be great. I don't ever want to see us settle for good enough or for mediocre. And I'm afraid that that's what we may have done at times in the past. I'm running because this city was founded to be something special, and I think it always ought to be that.
Well, my full name is Pat Shull, the only candidate that voted to cut your property taxes. And I'm a native of Kingsport, Dobbins Bennett grad. I came back here to retire after 26 and a half years in the Army, retired as a colonel, where I led thousands of soldiers, responsible for millions of dollars, both peacetime and combat. And I agree with Ben, this is a great place. That's why I came back to retire. I could have lived anywhere. Some people talk about downtown. Mary and I did more than talk. We walked the walk. We started a business, Mary's Kitchen Shop, in downtown, and I've also got some great educational background in public administration. Right now I'm working as Chief of Staff at Virginia Intimont, but my bio is right there in those blue papers, and please pick one up and read it. Thank you.
All right. There's our candidates. Let's give them a big round of applause. I want to thank them for bearing with us. I've tried to keep these periods quick, and they've done a great job because people of a younger generation, myself included, sometimes have a short attention span. I'd like to encourage anybody who wants to get to know the workings of the city deeper to go to a Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. They cover a lot of ground there and go in a lot more detail. So, or talk with some of the candidates who are not currently on the BMA if you'd like to do that. Okay, first question. Rank these personality traits as they apply to you as an alderman. Passion, knowledge, responsibility, and describe why that order suits you representing Kingsport citizens. And if you want to, Pat, we'll let you go ahead and start that.
Okay. Well, this was pretty easy for me. I would say responsibility, then knowledge, then passion. Because when you're an Army officer, you are highly responsible for soldiers, their lives, their families. It just naturally gravitate that way. And, of course, if you don't have the knowledge and the passion to do your job, you're in the wrong business. And it was pretty easy for me to convert that type of intensity and sense of responsibility to coming back to Kingsport, serving my community, and representing people whose views are probably underrepresented on this board. So I feel like I'm responsible for representing all constituencies, but there's a significant number of Kingsporters who believe that I am the independent voice that they need on this board.
I would have to rank those as responsibility, passion, and then knowledge. The reason I would put responsibility first is probably for a very different reason than most people would say that. And it's this. I plan to live here for the rest of my life, which is hopefully a long time. And so I want to see this place, want to see this board make the kinds of long-term investments that'll make this be the kind of place that I want to live and that young professionals and young families will choose to live from here on out. And to me, that's a responsibility. And so that's why that's first.
I would rank it knowledge, responsibility, and passion. I believe that you have to have a deep understanding of the issues, and you need to dig into them and make sure that you're doing the right things for now and for the future. I believe you have to have the responsibility to do your homework, to understand the issues, to talk to people, and finally, you have to have a passion about what you're doing. But again, knowledge, responsibility, and passion.
I agree with Mike. Knowledge, responsibility, and passion. You have to understand the issues first. So that's your knowledge. Responsibility not just to a chosen few in Kingsport, but responsibility to all the people who live here. And a passion for what you believe in, because I think you have to fight for the things that you think are really important to the people here. Thank you.
This, in describing myself, I would have to say passion and energy typifies myself. I have a driving desire to find ways to make improvement, to contain cost, and to grow. Knowledge-wise, I've got 25 years of experience in a large number of civic and city services, so that's a given. Responsibility, I've personally have a demonstrated record. Put together, I'm out of time. Almost.
Okay, my order is responsibility, knowledge, and passion. I believe in right and wrong, and people should hold people in power accountable. Knowledge, I'm 59 years old. I've lived in this community for 40 years. And I know I have the knowledge and the expertise to help lead Kingsport, just from my community experience. And passion, passion is heard and felt by others when they hear someone speak about their family, the Lord, or their hobby. And when I travel to other states or cities, I always speak well of my neighbors and Kingsport.
All right, thanks, everybody. If you don't care, pass that down to Ben, and we'll let him field the second question, and we'll pass it back to Pat at the end. And thanks for bearing with this microphone issue. And remember, pretend it's a baby, and you're going to kiss it. Hold it right there. Is Kingsport better off now than 10 years ago? If so, what are the major reasons, and what is its current trends towards the next year and beyond?
Well, 10 years ago, almost to the day, I was about to graduate from the University of Tennessee, and neither I nor anybody that I knew from Kingsport was thinking seriously about moving back here. And the reason was very simple. It wasn't the economy, it wasn't the job market, it was because of the quality of life issues that were out here. Kingsport just didn't offer the kind of quality of life that the people that I knew wanted to have. I think the situation is so much different now and so much better now that Kingsport has become a place that people choose to live for the quality of life and for the economic reasons. So, to my mind, it is infinitely better now than it was 10 years ago.
I agree. I think Kingsport has come a long way in the last 10 years. Just look around you. Downtown, higher ed centers, lots more opportunities for shopping and eating. I think we've come a long way, but we've got opportunities to go a long way from where we are. So we have definitely come a long way.
Answer is yes. I think we're in a better position to develop a workforce for our employers, to educate our population past high school, and to keep our downtown healthy. We definitely have a better quality of life than we had then. Our sports facilities are so much better. Our shopping is so much better, but we still have a way to go. Thank you.
If we look at Kingsport before 10 years ago, we could liken it to Rip Van Winkle. We were a sleepy, slow, conservative town, largely dependent upon a handful of major employers. And look at us now. We've got a diversified work base. We've got a better tax base. We've got a diversified workforce. We've got a new spirit in Kingsport. It's contagious, as evidenced by folks like yourself. We're now looking at the possibility of a King's medical facility. Exciting. The future is really only limited by our vision.
Well, I said no to this one. And at this time, we do not have enough jobs in our community. We do not have enough jobs that pay above minimum wage. We have minimum wage to $8 per hour jobs. We need more tech jobs. We need skilled construction jobs, and we need manufacturing jobs. We have just numerous retail and restaurant positions, but nothing that pays $12, $14, $15 an hour on the horizon.
Where do you want to start?
Yeah, pass it down the path there.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. It's a little hard for me to get a fix on Kingsport in 1999 because I was at the Army War College and then at this time and then a few weeks later on my way to Korea. So I would just have a snapshot. But my last duty assignment was at Fort Campbell, which is not too far away, and Mary and I came back and forth quite a few times because unfortunately my mom and dad died within 18 months of each other. So we were back and forth and back and forth. Those sad aspects aside, I reconnected. Mary fell in love with the place. Our kids are only 13 and 14 now, so we just knew that this was the place we wanted to put our roots down and have a family because it's a great place. And I want to just keep seeing it get better and better.
Here's the deal with the next question. The next question is, what are your thoughts on Riverwalk and perhaps the creation of more activity areas closer to downtown? In the interest of time, I would like to skip ahead to the next question, if that's all right with everybody. Anybody that would like to say something to that question, I'll give you a chance. But we talked about Riverwalk and stuff like that.
We could give him 15 minutes after it to talk about it.
You're going to have to still open questions of your choice.
We'll have closing remarks and stuff. So I'll just go ahead and go to number 6. That's my phone, sorry. I'm watching the time. In Rock Springs community, the school and the fire station are coming along very well. But what other features can citizens newly annexed expect in the coming years in this and other areas? Specifically, are there any thoughts on parks or branches eventually of city services like library or senior center, greenbelt extensions, aquatic substations? Who knows?
Wouldn't it be wonderful? If we could promise walking trails, city pools, and libraries for all of our different areas. But you have to understand that annexation is not a moneymaker for the city. Annexation cost the city for the first, quite a few years. Because we have to provide city services. We have to provide sewer. We have to provide street lighting, adequate water for fire suppression, police and fire protection. And they're expensive enough. So hopefully some of the others will follow in due time.
To put this in perspective a little bit, Kingsport is 45 square miles and approximately 8 miles across, depending on which way you measure. So we're a pretty concentrated city without having great distances to go. Heretofore, we have basically centralized services, whether it be swimming, library, etc. The last time we had a public facilities master plan where the professionals look at that, it's been about 20 years. As we extend our boundaries with the smart growth plan, I believe that the time will come where we'll need to look again to see about satellite facilities. Walking trails, green belt, we're now looking and planning to extend to other areas, including those that we've talked about. There's definite plans link the trails.
I would be in favor of a bike hiking trail that would lead from Colonial Heights into Warriors Pass State Park. And with the pending renovations for the downtown library, I would not vote to fund a library in Colonial Heights. And I would like to, if it was ever presented, a community center with a pool or something, when the funds are available, would be nice for that area. But we certainly need to, be mindful of our money. The economy it's in bad shape right now, and we certainly need to think about what we spend.
Then pass it back down to Pat, Ben, and Mike, who I kept wanting to say Mark, but it's Mike.
Well, when we talk about annexation, I think it's important to remember that we're compelled by law to provide full city services within 5 years. So that makes it imperative that we plan carefully enough so that we can do this in a paced, reasonable, affordable manner. Now, I feel pretty strongly about the 360-degree comprehensive annexation plan that I've advocated in several forums well before the election season started. And in fact, I met with one of our planners yesterday, and absolutely they can crank into their planning ideas about parks and space utilization, land utilization. They're about to complete a land use study right now. We want to do growth in a planned, controlled way. We don't want to approach it in a haphazard manner.
Well, I just wanted to know who could possibly have written the question about wanting more amenities in the Rock Springs area. Chad Riggs.
I've got a follow-up after he's done.
I actually think the city of Kingsport, at least during my term on the board, has done a really good job of bringing new amenities to the at least the larger areas that we've annexed. And I think the Edinburgh annexation is a model of what we can do. We worked very closely with the developers to secure a donation of some property where we built a new school, of course, but they also donated a turnkey park that will be a real amenity to everybody out in the Rock Springs community. And so I think as we move forward, it's really important that we do things like pocket parks and the same kind of amenities we've got here.
And I think just to elaborate on what Valerie said, when an annexation takes place, the city has 5 years by law to put in all the amenities, and there are quite a few millions of dollars that are going to go into the Rock Springs area. Annexing residential property is pretty much a wash at best, and sometimes it costs the city, but there are reasons to do annexations and to keep the city growing and prospering. I think that we also need to get the road, Rock Springs Road, worked on. It's got some bad curves and all in it, and that's also in the plans to be done. So there's a lot of just infrastructure costs that I think are going to take place before we're able to add a whole lot, but I'm sure we'll put some walks and so forth out there.
I think it's interesting the way you gave us all water so we can see we're going to have a waterfall up here at some point.
Yeah. Follow up to Ben's thing. I was actually fishing for an answer to that. I live out near Fall Branch, Mill Creek, and my in-laws live in Church Hill. So as the city grows, there's a pie there from the sky. And that piece of the pie is Bays Mountain Park. And it just gets bigger and bigger and wider. So I'm fishing for a 4-lane from Lone Star to Church Hill. You can work with Tony Shipley on that, whatever you need to do. I mean, it means I won't come downtown as often, but I'll stay longer when I do. Okay, last question in this section. Just a quick one. What is your favorite city outside of Kingsport? And you can pick two if one's nearby and one's far away.
My favorite is probably Asheville, and one furthest away that I really love is Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Fort Worth, Texas.
Well, I'm the chief of staff at Virginia Mott College, so Bristol's been very good to me, but I took Mary to Charleston, South Carolina on our first date. We went all the way up from Fort Stewart, Georgia, because my alma mater, the Siddles, there.
I'm just going to start naming cities until somebody takes the microphone away from me. Greenville, South Carolina, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Austin, Texas, Chicago. Here.
Probably my favorite little city is probably Glowing Rock, North Carolina, but Asheville would be pretty close by, and I do also like Charleston, South Carolina a great deal.
I like New York City for a visit because I think it not only broadens your outlook, but it also makes you appreciate a town this size. And I also like Lancaster, Pennsylvania, because it gives you an interesting comparison of lifestyles, and it's the prettiest farmland in the world.
Well, that's the last of those short answer questions. These are going to be, the next ones are going to be a minute, and we'll cut you off at a minute 20. And we're just going to skip over number 8. We'll let you wrap that up at the end. You're going to clarify any of the things you said before, expand on any topics. We'll go ahead to number 9. And for young professionals, both in the area and those considering moving here, a job market is more important than just a job. And often we prefer a variety of scenes and activities across city and even state lines. What would you do during your term to work with other cities and entities to promote the region?
I would propose we keep the funding for the Chamber of Commerce. They do an excellent job of selling Kingsport, much more so than me because I'm not a great public speaker. I guess you guys have figured that out. But anyway, they work with other chambers in the area real well, and they're just really good people, and they do promote the city, and I really enjoy the Chamber of Commerce here.
Well, we have some important programs in place in this area, which I have supported, like the Kingsport Convention and Visitors Bureau, the networks, Sullivan County networks, and the Move to Kingsport. I think Mary and the kids and I are like a poster family for the Move to Kingsport. I mean, we could have lived anywhere, but we came back here because we felt like there was lots of opportunity and just a great quality of life. I think it's important to remember, though, that when we talk about regional cooperation, unfortunately, we're in a sales tax competition with our neighbors. So that we have to keep that in mind when we talk about cooperation. Having said that, it'd be better for a business to settle in Bristol if we couldn't get them in Kingsport than it would for them to go to Colorado. But I think we ought to keep in mind the spirit of Kingsport. People like J. Fred Johnson and others who came here not looking for a government handout. They came here and made it happen themselves. And I think that's one of the reasons I like KNETIC so much, is these are people who are not waiting around for something to happen. They're making something happen.
Well, I actually think that the city of Kingsport has stronger partnerships with the other cities in the region now, and Sullivan County and some of the other places, and particularly with Johnson City, than it's had really in a long time. And I think we have to continue those things because outsiders do see us as a region. Having said that, to market ourselves, I think it is absolutely important that we don't market ourselves as one big homologous blob, because nobody identifies with that. I think that probably the most important thing that we could do is to develop a segmented personality for each of the cities and the Tri-Cities. I think the most important thing that the city of Kingsport could do is to develop the strongest identity, the strongest brand that it could. Likewise for Bristol and for Johnson City. Having each of them be as strong as they possibly could be in their own unique way is what's going to make this region successful. There's an old saying that predates my birth by a long time, that if you want to raise hell, go to Johnson City. If you want to raise a family, go to Kingsport. Now, I'm not saying that that's what our brand ought to be. But I think it's really, really important that we identify ourselves in some way so that people identify with us.
You can't say that, George. Y'all quit talking. You know that city, county, and state lines are really just lines on a map in many ways, and I think it's important in doing economic development that we all work together as much as we can. We've made real progress and real strides with that, with Network, and we need to continue to work to make sure that we're doing our best in economic development areas to bring people here. Like Ben said, I think it's very important that Kingsport has its identity. But, from a financial standpoint and economic standpoint, it probably doesn't make a whole lot of difference whether a new business locates in the city limits or right outside the city limits. It's going to provide jobs. It's going to provide money from property taxes. It's going to provide money from sales taxes and other things. And so we all need to work together and see that it's important to bring new businesses and new industries into this community to support.
We've had a lot of people about corporations and companies that come in. Most of my work has been with families that have come here. And I find that it's extremely easy to sell our area. And I've sold the whole area because of our beautiful natural resources. We have the rivers, we have our lakes, we have streams to fish in, we have the mountains for hiking. NETA, which is Northeast Tennessee Tourism, gives a lot of information to all of us besides the tourists on what amenities are available. So it's never been a problem to sell Kingsport to anyone outside this area. And people locate in different cities mostly because they have some contact there, some family there, or the job is close, or they can find a house they like in that area. Believe it or not, people that come looking for homes don't just look here if their jobs are here. They'll look in Kingsport, Johnson City, Bristol, Rogersville, Sirgoinsville. So, the best thing to do is to sell the whole area. Thank you.
I think there's tremendous opportunity for better cooperation and also tremendous need. There's been a whole lot done in the last 10 years. There's more that can be done. It depends on whether you talk about economic development, individual city identity, whether you're talking about education resources, or perhaps political clout. But there are so many areas where if we pull together, we can be more powerful than Chattanooga or Knoxville or other areas. If we pull together in those areas, with our political will. I personally have already began reaching out with contacts with county leaders, Sullivan County leaders, with education folks in Johnson City, Bristol, just establishing contacts. I'd like to see us carry forward with the work that Dennis and others have started. I believe we can be even stronger.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate that. Our next question, I want to preface with the fact that I attended a different school than Dobbins Bennett High School. Somehow I made it to where I am today, but I'd like to tell you, as a Move to Kingsport volunteer, I enjoy telling everyone about the 800 band students and the many state sport championships and academic baccalaureate and advanced placement classes that you have there, and I'm thrilled to have such an asset to our city. Kingsport schools are excellent, and our commitment to higher education is a template for success of those both who desire a first career or a switch. However, many of my friends are examples of how sometimes we are victim of our own successes. People educated here really can go anywhere and do anything. So what are the tools with which you can encourage young entrepreneurs, creative types, and techies to either return to Kingsport or choose it for the first time? And how important is a potential med school to this? Go ahead and go back down.
Let me take the Med College part first. King College is a private, religious affiliated college in Bristol. I'm the Chief of Staff of Virginia Intermont College, a private, religious affiliated college in Bristol. It's not my job to promote King College. I'm not here to throw rocks at King College either. Enough said. Now, the thrust of the question was economic development. I believe the best economic development that the city of Kingsport can do is keep low taxes, outstanding schools, maintain outstanding schools. I have 2 kids in city schools. We should maintain an outstanding infrastructure, strong infrastructure. We can provide outstanding city services, and we can do all this, like I said, by maintaining our taxes fairly low. You know, the engine of economic growth is the private sector. The government cannot and should not try to solve every conceivable problem. And so our business in the government is to help set the conditions so that the private sector can grow and thrive. Thank you.
Well, I don't think it's the government's job to solve every problem out there either, but I also don't think it's the government's job to sit on its hands and say whatever happens, happens. We've done that for a long time, and it got us pretty far behind. You know, the question that we ask about how do we attract young creative types and young entrepreneurs, the question in and of itself is fascinating because it recognizes a seismic shift in how we're doing economic development. The old method of economic development is you try and attract big businesses. You try and attract the next smokestack manufacturing plant. Well, in the mid-'90s, that people realized that the cost and benefits of that were just too great to be sustainable. And Cincinnati, in fact, was one of the first cities that said, we're not recruiting businesses anymore. We're recruiting people. And I think that's exactly the direction that we ought to be headed. Recognizing that people can live anywhere, the most important thing you can do to attract these incredibly mobile types of folks is A, quality of life, which we've discussed at length, and B, branding yourself as the kind of city that these folks want to live in. I mean, when we talk about ourselves, what we have to say is, yes, we have a low cost of living, but we also have these beautiful mountains. Oh, and by the way, we have a higher ratio of patents per capita than certainly any city in the United States. I mean, certainly any city in Tennessee, but we compete very well in the United States as well.
I also think that we need to focus on economic development and growth. The quality of life in this area is outstanding, and we don't have a hard job, I think, of selling it. But I do think if we have more businesses sustainable in the 21st century that we can bring in, a lot of those are going to be small, going to be mobile, going to be opportunities to do new tech types of things, then I think we've got an opportunity to grow. As we do grow, I think we'll reach a critical mass that it will continue to evolve and develop, and we'll have those businesses come into this community. As far as the King College School of Medicine, the presentation that was made last week, I guess, was just, jaw-dropping in terms of what the numbers were. I think that it's incumbent upon us to do our due diligence and to make sure that we believe the numbers that have been developed by King College. If they're real, or if they're even close to being real, then we need to do everything we can to bring that school into this community. It will generate jobs, it will generate growth, and it'll do a great deal for this country and this community and this area for the next 100 years.
It's hard to entice people to come live in a small town unless they have a reason to go there. I think jobs have a lot to do with it. If there's a reason to come and even interview in Kingsport, it's very easy to sell people on living here because we do have so many of the quality of life that young people are looking for. Most people go to where either the jobs are or where the families are. And I have found a lot of people of my children's age have waited until there were job opportunities here to move back here, even though they may have moved away first. I also found that when the children move here, the grandparents quite often follow because they go where the grandchildren are. So I think that, the more opportunities we have, the more people that will come and find our area. But they've got to have a reason to find us in the first place. As for the med school, I hope we can pull it off. There's a lot of hoops to jump through and a lot of papers to be filed, but it certainly would be an opportunity for many, many jobs, and any city would benefit from having a med school. So we'll see where it goes. Thank you.
Kingsport's strategy, or in the past, particularly with education, has been somewhat educate and release. And I think we're now transitioning to educating beyond high school. And I think the Board of Mayor and Aldermen has to keep all of this in balance. We've got K through 12 education. We've got after 12th grade education. We've got workforce development. We've got the med school possibility. So all of that is part of this transition. We've got to provide the quality of life improvements that we all support. Another thing I think is important is we need to encourage young people like you, like Ben, to get into city government. I think that's key to our future, and it's a very attractive aspect of our business. King College, it's a tremendous opportunity on the surface. It's almost like George Eastman knocking on our door in 1920 and asking, would we be interested in investigating building a little chemical plant here? You know, it's got tremendous potential, and I think we need to kind of have a can-do, optimistic, thorough investigation, like Mike said, and see if we can't do it.
The higher ed center or higher ed school downtown and the potential med school would offer first career and second career young people a lot of opportunity. But techies and entrepreneurs would be a hard sell at this time. The current BMA just voted to cut funding for the Holston Business Incubator to half the current funding. And we need to do something to attract medium to big-sized business like Ben Malakote mentioned. And we certainly need to focus on manufacturing and tech jobs.
Is that everybody?
Yep. Is that everybody?
Yep.
So
I guess we could have just gone from this end. I'm sorry. The next question is submitted by Kathleen Terry, Business Operations Manager, Appalachian Sustainable Development. I'm going to read the whole question, but it's about green building and what do you think about it? Because she knows a lot about it, and she put that in her question. It's a good question, but just to summarize, it's about what do you think the city's role in green building is. Green building is not only important as a means of addressing global warming, it also makes good business sense for the city of Kingsport. How do you envision incorporating green building technologies in all future projects? Do you support a change to building codes to require minimum levels of efficiency, such as requiring EPA Energy Star certified energy efficient rating building development? Nashville, Vanderbilt University, and UT Knoxville have made this a policy in all new buildings to have to be LEED Silver. That's a certification. How can Kingsport be following their example?
Well, this Board of Mayor and Aldermen has done more in terms of energy efficient building and green design than probably every board before us. The Higher Education Center that's being completed as we speak is the first publicly funded LEED certified education building in the state of Tennessee, to my knowledge. We've undertaken a massive project to make all of the city buildings that we have more energy inefficient. And in fact, that's going to be paid for out of the energy savings that we reap out of that. And so I am very supportive of both of those projects and of doing those kinds of things in the future. I think they make tremendous sense, both from an environmental standpoint and from a cost savings standpoint, that in the long run, you recoup your investment on those. As far as changing the building codes to make those things mandatory, I have very mixed feelings about that. I would love to see us do those kinds of things in a perfect world. At the same time, we actually changed the building codes during my time on the board to make adaptive reuse kinds of things, like this building and like the lofts and shops, those kinds of things, to make those things possible and more feasible. And I don't want to see us do anything, however well-intentioned it may be, that makes those kinds of adaptive reuse projects more difficult. The law of unintended consequences is one law the government always seems to ignore.
I agree with Ben that this community's done an awful lot. We certainly are ahead in recycling, on energy-efficient buildings, and fuel-efficient fleets. They've spent a lot of money on vehicles and all of that. I also share Ben's concern about changing the building code laws without some very, very detailed study and careful planning. I have been in that business in a past career, and when you get into details with some things, it's not always what you think the answer is. So I think you've got to be very, very careful about doing that, but I do think we need to be trying to look hard at those things, and if it makes good sense, then I think we need to move forward with it.
If you want to know what the city has done to make us a greener city, go to Jeff Fleming's blog and click on Environment, and Tim Whaley has done a big list of everything that we've done to turn Kingsport into a green city. Our John Adams School, new elementary school, is a green school. Of course, the Higher Ed Center. And we are working very hard at having a green fleet whenever it's economically feasible. I think we need to offer incentives to our developers to make their buildings more green, but I don't think we ought to require them to, at this point, to change our building code. But I think if we make it perhaps more feasible to do so. An example, I think that there were people that talked to the developers of Skyline Falls. I think the fire department went and talked to them and said, why don't you put sprinklers in your buildings? And they did it, and they're able to sell it as one of their features that you can't get in any other place. So if we can keep pushing things like that, we'll get more builders involved in using those green technologies. Anyway, it depends a lot on economic feasibility, but the greener we are, the better we're going to be in the future.
The greening of buildings and construction is definitely an ongoing process and is the way of the future. It's been going on for 20 years. It's really taken a faster track here recently, but it includes things like design, specifications, materials, operating efficiency, and even demolition. So the city staff is very aware of this. And what's happening is the national associations and suppliers are greening. State and national standards are going in that direction. And owners like the city of Kingsport is starting to show preference. And contractors, particularly local contractors, are starting to understand the advantages. So I very definitely support it. We've got a great start. The city is very aware of it. It's a transition. You've got to balance technology and economics, and I think the right people are looking at it, and standards will change, either whether we do it by code or by practice.
I think the city is doing a good job in conserving energy, but we do not need any new codes. And the government needs to step back and look at current codes and maybe, change some of the existing codes. And I think the energy cost alone will dictate future building construction. Contractors are going to look at, the ways they're building these buildings and build them much more efficiently. Also, utility companies like power and gas could provide heating and cooling units at their cost and no interest to the consumer. That would be one incentive. But I still think the codes, we need to look at what we do with codes.
Back down the pad.
I don't think the other candidates mentioned, about 2.5, 3 years ago, the city entered into a contract with an organization called the ESG Corporation, and they retrofitted all our older city buildings like Civic Auditorium, the City Hall, to be energy efficient. So, and they mentioned the other things, hybrid vehicles, the building the Higher Ed Center under these kind of standards. I don't think we should do things just to say that we should do them, and because it looks like it's the fad of the moment. I would weigh out any new green initiatives we took in some kind of cost-benefit manner and see what the trade-offs are between cost and achieving some kind of greenness, if you will. I've been to over 2,300 homes door to door, and I tell you, this question hadn't come up, but, for example, we could save money by ending recycling, but I don't sense that our citizens would want us to end recycling. I think that they believe it's the right thing to do. So, these things require a case-by-case analysis.
Okay. Okay, what I want to do now, I was going to shoot for an hour, and we're right at an hour. So I had 3 questions left, but they're questions I wrote, so I don't think they're that great. One was, what topics to be tackled by the BMA do you think might be relevant to young professionals that we may have skipped over, which I think you can cover that in closing remarks. The other one was sort of an idea I had about Wi-Fi at Bays Mountain for the whole city, and if that's something that economic development case can be made for. And the last one is that we want to remind you that you can watch this on Channel 16, the city's cable channel, and Weston Leonard, who's back there filming, wanted to know what you thought you might do to grow this valuable asset. So what I'd like to do is just, with those in mind and the other things that you think young professionals might be interested in, I want to give you a chance to sum up, and we'll give you up to 2 minutes on this, and then we'll maybe not open it up, but let people come up and talk to you.
So this is it.
Is that okay? Do you want to answer some questions from the audience? Or?
No, we have about 6 questions and a closing statement. We've got 2 minutes.
We've got 2 minutes.
Yes, no.
Go! You can talk about whatever you want to. You can just ignore the Wi-Fi thing unless you think it's a really stupendous idea. I also want to point out that Ben Malakote only mentioned cities with very liberal vice mayors.
Well, thank you all for having us and listening to us tonight. Let me close by just saying that in these economic times, I really believe what this community needs to focus on the fundamentals. And if we focus on economic development, and there's 3 parts of that as far as I'm concerned, we need to do things to bring money into our community, and we can do that by helping businesses in the community export their services and products, by bringing in new businesses, which is a little difficult in these times, but we can't give up on that. And finally, to continue to strengthen the Move to Kingsport program. All of those things bring money into that and help keep our economy strong. The second thing is we need to continue to focus on education. Our Higher Ed Center is just a wonderful step that this community has taken, and we can thank the folks that are here and others that have made that happen. It's been a vision for a good long time, and it's now becoming a reality. And I think it's going to be great to have folks being able to both earn and learn in downtown Kingsport, and that's a very, very positive thing for us. And then we need to continue to grow this community. If we don't, we'll start going the other way because it's very, very difficult to stand still. So we need to focus on those things. If we do that, then their quality of life and all the other great things about this community will continue to strive and grow. I've been... as I said, in this community for 43 years. I've served on the Kingsport Citizens Advisory Committee. I'm currently on both the Kingsport and Sullivan County Regional Planning Commissions, and I've been chair of the Board of Zoning Appeals. So I believe in giving back, and I have an opportunity at this point, I think, to give back like I've not been able to do in the past. And I really would appreciate your support as we go forward into this new times.
You can wait till that goes by.
Well, I'll start off talking about the future BMA topics. I think we ought to have a topic of how to get more young professionals to move here, how to entice certain missing retail stores to locate here, how to encourage more home building here, how to get our banks to lend money for home building here, and how to get more ice cream downtown. Those are the things that I thought about. Now, as a closing statement, I'm asking for your vote because I feel like that I've been working very hard for Kingsport's future. My family came here in 1920 when my grandfather came to work for Tennessee Eastman. My family is still here. My grandchildren are here. I have 6 of them that live in Kingsport. And I would like to think that my grandchildren and maybe their children will want to live in Kingsport like I have. As a business owner, I've spent a lot of years, especially because I'm a realtor, working with newcomers and people leaving our areas, and I think that does give me a different perspective from anyone else that's on our board. People can live anywhere in our beautiful area. If they live outside the city of Kingsport, we'd sure like them to come here and shop, because I think 23% of our income for the city comes from sales tax. 48% comes from property tax. So we need to encourage people to live here, to shop here, to enjoy everything that we have to offer. Our quality of life is wonderful here in Kingsport. So I feel like I've worked for 6 years to make this a better place, and that I'd like to have 4 more to continue doing that. Thank you very much.
Going back to our initial challenge from the mayor, I would summarize my candidacy like this. This election really is not about us, but it's about you. And it's what direction you want your city to go or to go in the future. Do you like and support explosive redevelopment? And that's a good word to use. Do you like the education initiatives? Do you like the quality of life projects? Do you have a strong feeling about dynamic future or development in the future, such as the riverfront redevelopment, the King College Medical School potential? What kind of people do you want to put on the board? Do you want good stewards, people that look at everything from a balanced standpoint, pro and con, and try to find out what's best for the city and for the taxpayer? Consider, too, that what we've had in the past has been done within our budget. We haven't had a tax increase in 4. This will be the 5th year, if it's approved. Actually, our debt as a percent has gone in the last 6 years, I believe, from 10% to 4%. So do you like the direction? Do you want to continue with affordable conservative growth? If so, give me a shot. Thank you.
I certainly want to see Kingsport continue to grow. And we need to be conservative with our growth, but we also need to be mindful that we need jobs for our young people. We have a lot of people graduating high school and college in this area, and we need more businesses. I'd like to see our debt a little lower. Tom said that it was at 4% now, but I would like to see it at 0. We pay about $12 million every year out in debt service, and the school board's about $1 million short in funding this year. So if we didn't have the debt, then we'd certainly have $1 million probably for the city, schools. And I want to thank you for letting me come here tonight and speak, and I'd appreciate your vote on May the 19th, and I'll do my best for the city of Kingsport. Thank you.
I believe I'm a very positive person. I'm sure the soldiers I led in Iraq, the people I work with at the college would say I am, and anybody that says different, that's just name calling. And I think, and I'm definitely for progress at a rate we can afford. And anybody that says I'm somehow against progress, well, that's just slander. I voted for the Higher Ed Center. I voted for the new elementary school. I voted for the health building. I voted for 2 new fire stations. I voted for the Rock Springs annexations. And I can go on. Yes, there are some profound differences between me and the majority of the BMA on some issues, and unfortunately those all didn't come out tonight. But I've got good reasons for them, and I can defend them, and I got a lot of people that support me. General George Patton said once that if everyone's thinking alike, then someone's not thinking. I think it's good and healthy to have an alternative view on this board that's reasonable and it's got other solutions. But we flat have spent money unnecessarily on some projects. We've almost doubled the debt in 3.5 years. If I was one of you young people out there, I'd be a little concerned about that because you're the ones that are going to be paying that debt. Now, yes, I know we're under the legal debt threshold, and I know we got some debt roll-off, but we also have some tremendous debt coming up on the Aquatic Center, which took a form different than what I wanted, and on the V.O. Dobbins building, on the some other areas where we just didn't need to spend the money. So I think it's healthy to have a different point of view. I think what concerns me is that will the board take this opportunity to reduce the debt because some debt service is rolling off to enter into more projects with some unwise spending, like this executive conference center. I was for using that quarter-cent sales tax proceeds to reduce your property tax, not leverage it towards special interest.
Well, I'm very glad that Pat and I get to go one right after another because I think we crystallize the different positions that exist in this campaign, and I'm especially glad, having said that I get to talk last.
I'd be glad to respond.
Well, look, Pat's position, as he said over and over and over again, is I'm the only alderman who ever voted to decrease your taxes. I reject the idea that the citizens of the city of Kingsport are overtaxed. The question that you ought to be asking is not, could we possibly be paying less? I'm sure we could. It's A, are we being fairly taxed? And if you look at all of our sister cities, all of our comparable cities, we're right in the middle to on the low end of the spectrum. And B, the more important question is the money that comes into the city's coffers being spent intelligently? To me, that is infinitely more interesting as a question. And the answer to that, I think, is over the last 4 years is a resounding yes. The kinds of things that Valerie says 6 years, because that's how long she's been on the board. The kinds of investments that this board has made have been the kinds of things that will have tremendous, transformational impacts on the city of Kingsport going forward. The Higher Education Center addresses our most important, our most pressing workforce development need. And if you don't think that has the opportunity to change Kingsport and to change the kind of employers and the kind of businesses that locate here, I don't know what to tell you, because that's exactly what's going to happen. We have done exactly the right kinds of things in entering into strategic partnerships with developers and with retailers and with residential developers to make this a more attractive and, yes, more fiscally sound place to live. Any business owner will tell you that you cannot be successful in the long term by cutting, simply by cutting. If a business wants to be successful, or if the city of Kingsport wants to be successful, we have to do it by growing. And one of the first things that Mike said is the last thing I'll say. We're either growing or we're dying. And I'm running because I want to make sure that this city keeps growing. Thanks.
Well, I'd like to thank all of you for coming out. This is important, and I appreciate young faces in the crowd as well as old. City government is important to all of us because I didn't see any old ones. They already left. Oh, God. Thank you for being patient for me. This is not my day job. City government is a lot like, the third grade's not important until you've got a third grader. And, a lot of us come and go, and we're in the area. And the city is important to us, and it's important to pay attention now because, we will be faced with some of these issues down the road, and maybe sooner than we think. I'd like to say thank you to all the candidates. Every one of you, I really admire, and I don't deserve to ask you these questions. You're far above me, and I so do admire what you're doing for the city. It's public service, very wonderful. Thank you for all the things you do to make the city better, for downtown concerts, for greenbelts, for better retail and revitalization, for continued support of things like Fun Fest and Bays Mountain Park. I'd also like to say that it's my belief that our group, young professionals, overwhelmingly desire someplace to swim indoors. Whatever you decide, just make it snappy. And through KNETIC and as a volunteer bus guide for Move to Kingsport, it's the pinnacle issue of why someone would choose not to choose Kingsport. We thank you for your time and your dedication for running the gauntlet required for public service. The time to look forward to seeing you lead us on to even more success. I don't know if that made sense. I may have written that poorly. Thank you very much. And remember to vote May 19th. Thank you.